Hey, what's going on guys? Hope that everyone will be fine and welcome back to another tutorial. So in this video I'm going to explain you how you can insert the data using checkboxes and without page refreshing, right? That means that we are working with the AJAX and jQuery, right? This kind of a video which you are hard to find on YouTube and other people have created, which is a lot of mess of code and difficult to understand. So I try my best to explain everything, every single thing, right? So let's first look for the demo and then we can work and start with the coding section. So here I have a three products name. So we have the mobile, we have the games, and the LCDs with having its proper price and the quantity. So as long as I check the values and define this product and quantity, we can add the data in on our database, right? So if I just try to click on the mobile and the games and let's define the product, the price, and let's define the product quantity, in my case 5, and let's define here for the 8, and let's define here 12, right? So if as long as I keep checked my product names, so if I just try to click on the submits button, and this gonna data inserted successfully, also show the message, and plus it's also disappeared all the values it cleared on the including the check boxes and the price and the quantity. And now if I just go to my database, which actually is filled for my previous case, right? If I just try to insert the data, and there you go. So you can see how we can add the data using checkboxes. Similar, if I try to check all the values, and let's define here all the all right, so I define all the mobile games and LCD. Now I check them all, and if I just try to click on the submit, you see the message down, and if I go back to my PHP my admin, and there you could see we can add the data without page refreshing. So I hope you guys really love this video. So let's jump in and start coding into the VS Code, right? Thank you. Alright guys, so welcome back to the coding section. So here I'm going to explain you how you can start working with the checkboxes. And so first thing you need to do is to just check your .env file and make sure you have changed the database name that you will create. So in my case it's checkbox_tutorial, and there you could see that the checkbox_tutorial I just created with the same name, and later on we're gonna migrate the table. So I have a fresh copy of Laravel, so don't worry about it. Everything is from the scratch, and all you need to do is to simply run the server by simply typing php artisan serve. And before, if you haven't have no idea about Laravel, you can watch my crash courses, or if you have any problem with installation, you can also watch my previous video for the Laravel. I've done this stuff much time, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do here is to create here a model. So I'm gonna open up the terminal. You can open up the terminal by having two options. The first option is here from the view. You can simply click on the terminal, or you can press the shortcut key Control+tilde, which is left to the number 1, right? And I'm gonna run, and we already have done this, so let's run the terminal. I'm gonna click on the new terminal, and let's run here, and I'm gonna run my server at the one end, and on the second terminal I'm gonna run my commands, right? So let's create here the migration for the product. So php artisan make model, and let's give it the name of product -m. And -m means for the migrations, right? So we have created the migrations, and let's go inside the migration, which should be inside your database and migrations, and let's go inside your create_products_table, right? So this is, I just show you. All right, so we just need to define here very basic migration. So we have only 3 columns. The first one is for the name, the second one is for the integer, which is price, and the third one is for the quantity. And make sure that you have the correct data type according to the field you define, right? So in my case the price is a number, so I define integer, and on top the name is a string which has more alphabets. So make sure that if it's something, a mixture of numbers, so you can define string, right? All right, so you can also define one more thing here, is the null label. If you want to give your field null in database, so you can also define null label. So in my case I'm just happy with the that's fine, right? It's up to you that if you want, right? All right, so I just also need to create here a controller. So let's create here a controller with the name of php artisan make controller, and the name of the controller in my case is product controller. All right, so I created here a controller as well. Now next time I need to do a very few changes here. So inside resources view and welcome.blade.php, and everything what you see here is basically you can see right on your main screen, right? So I need to rename that, and I just want to create that. First I want to change its name, so let's define it. Let's give it the name of product dot blade dot php. All right, so I just rename that and remove everything from here, and let's create here our on, right? So I just create here my basic HTML structure, and let's give it the title of insert checkboxes using Ajax, right? And so we give it the title here, and I need to define some styling here. So let's go down here and define something which is basically meta, and I'm gonna define in meta, which is the CSRF token, which you see most often whenever you're submitting a form. So you basically have a very new new random form submission token. So basically that's what we are used. So whenever you're submitting the form using Ajax or form submission, you need to pass that content, and it is always be a good feature that whenever you're working with the Ajax or something like that, so usually it shows you mismatch token errors. So it's basically a good idea to add up here. So there are other different ways to define that, but I believe this is the most easiest way to define, right? So CSRF underscore token and give it the method, right? So we define our CSRF token, and let's do some very basic styling. So I want to create here a style inline CSS. So let's define here the so style, and in style I just want to define here something which is a notification div, and actually I just created for a purpose. So I created here for a purpose, like if z index means that something I want to show on top of the screen, display none means it should be hidden. Once it only shows when we have the response successful, and on based of that it's going to show us the response. So next we have the background color, which is green, font weight and the width of the size of the box, and the position is fixed, and we give it some positions through top and the left, and the text color is white, and we give some basic padding in internal spaces of the box, right? So basically this is the custom notification div that we created. It's very much similar to Toaster that you see most often, but that is something which we have created our on. So next we have our header. So before I should jump directly to it, I want to create a very basic HTML here. So inside my body, I need to first define my notification div, just because so that I could be able to show the message on my screen. So I define here notification div. Let's give define the header with the h1. Let's give it the name of product list. So we have to show some products on based on product listing. We can check each individual product, and then we can add up there, right? So next we have a form, and just remove that, right, form, and inside that I actually don't need any form because we are submitting using Ajax, but still it's fine, right? So inside form I'm gonna create my table. So let's create here a table, and inside that table let's create here table head, and inside table head I'm going to use table rows. Let's define the mtth. So if I need my table heading 4 times, I need to use a static and press 4. So this is going to bring me 4 times because with the help of VS Code, Emmet provide us the functionality. By default VS Code provide the functionality which can make things a lot much easier, right? So let's define here the first heading should be product name, the second should be price, and the last should be quantity. So I define the product name, price, and the quantity, and just after the table head, let's define a table body, and inside table body, I'm going to create here some data. So the first in the first empty table heading, I'm going to define here the input type of checkbox. So let's give it an input type of checkbox, and it should be checkbox, right? And I'm going to define here the name, which is product ID, because every single product have its on product ID based on its value. So you can also pass here the value. For instance, on our case, the first product should be like, if I want to give here mobile, right? So mobiles, if I pass here a value of mobile, we don't need any ID, so just remove that from here. Although we need a class here, so we can use it later on with the help of jQuery. We can repeatedly use and get the value using the each loop, which I'm going to show you in a little while, right? And next I'm going to define here after the next table data, we have the product name. So let's define here mobile, and I need to create here a hidden field as well, which I'm going to explain to you later on. Basically, we need to save that value of the mobile and save to the database. So for that, we need to create here a hidden field. Let's give it the name of product name, and make sure you have your array because we have multiple products. So that's why we have defined that array like name, right? And next we have to define here a class, which I've shown you. So prod-name. So this is basically the good way that it's easier to understand that basically it's a product name. This is the name and this is the product dash name, just to make it different in look wise, but basically showing you what you are doing, right? So make sure that you know what the convention you are writing the classes and the names, so that can really help you to pick up the things, right? So let's give it the value just like we give on top. So let's give it the value of mobile, right? So that we can save that value into our database, and make sure that they both have to be same, which can really make things easier for you and understand, right? So we have defined the product name. On top we have the checkbox, and now next we have to define here quantity. So let's give it here table data and input type of, let's give it the input type of number, because we have our quantity and the price. So in our first case, let's give it the product name and bring this in array name and ID equal to, just remove that ID, we don't need that. So let's define here prod-price, and we define the class, and that's fine, right? So just grab this one and let's give it the another product name, and here I'm gonna change that product name to product quantity. All right, so let's change that to be product quantity. All right, so I feel that's fine. So we define everything here. We have our product name. Sorry, this should be product underscore price. So we have our product ID, and very much same to that, we need to bring this in, right? So we give it our product ID. We have our product ID in class. We get the value, and for the product name, for the price, and for the quantity. All right, so we're good to go. Now we just need to create 3 more, and I need to wrap these all thing inside the tr. So I cut that all, and let's bring this in inside the tr, right? So basically for the single table row. So let's grab this, and I need to just make this like that. Now just grab that 3 times more, and now change its value. So in the first case I have a mobile. In the second case I have an LCD, and let's change that its value to be LCD, and same case on top here, right? So that's fine, and let's do the yeah, this should be for LCD. Okay, so this is gonna change that to be games, right? So let's give it the value of games. Alright, so I hope this is gonna be fine. Now we created all 3 table rows, and underneath that I need to create here a button just after the table and ending of this table. So this is the ending tag of the table. Let's bring here a div, and inside here I'm gonna create a very basic button. So input type of submit, let's give it the value of submit, and class equal to btn. Alright, so let's save it and see how it looks. But before I should do that, I need to go to my routes. Let's go inside the web.php and comment this because we have created a controller separately for this. So route get, and let's do for the home page, and create here the controller name, which is product controller in my case. So at the rate index. So I'm going to go inside my product controller, which should be inside your app http controllers product controller. Let's create here a function. So public function index, and let's return the view, which in my case is product. So let's return the view and give it the name of products, right? So we saves it, and if I just try to go to my browser and try to refresh this, so it looks like this. Now we need to do some styling in order to change that. Still it looks very fine, right? But we need to change that up. So let's go to the styles, and I'm gonna close my unnecessary tags. Okay, it's fine, we don't need web.php for now. So let's do some styling here, right? So in order to do some styling, I need to first go to my header and h1. Let's define here header h1 and give it the color of white. So I give it the color of white. Let's text align to the center, and let's give it the padding of 24 pixel and 10 pixel left and bottom, and let's give it the background color of 3343 368. All right, saves it. And now next we need to go to the table. Let's do some changes for the table. Let's give it the margin of 20 pixel auto. I'm just doing it for the sake to make my table into the center, right? So let's give it the border of 2 pixel solid and change that to be 344. Give it the hash color code A94, right? Saves it. And next I need to give some padding. Padding of 10 pixels. All right, so now let's give it the color of hash E3, 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 right? And we define the color. We just need to give its width of 60%. So define the table. Next we need to do is to table. Let's give it the table heading, and also for the table data, let's do some styling for that. So give it the padding of 10 pixels, text aligned to the left, and let's give it the background color of let's give it the color 334 and 368, right? So now let's look for the table rows. So table and table body. So inside table body we have table records. So let's give it the background dash color of hash 1C. So 1C 223B. All right, so the last thing for the pattern we need to do is to just simply define here the padding of 10 pixel, border none, and color of white, and background color of hash 2F4, and give it double A8, and position, it's fine, margin dash left, give it the 240 pixels. All right, so let's have a look and see how our browser reads. So it looks fine, right? It's okay. I just need to give my margin of my button little bit to the left more. So give it 260 pixels, and I need to define my body color as well. So let's go on top and do a bit stuff here. So here I need to define my body and make that background color of hash 0A1025, saves it, and just need to make this notification div down so it makes more sense, right? Looks very convenient, right? And on top I need to do one more stuff here, is to just give my box sizing. So box dash siding and give it border dash box, right? So if I just try to save it, and let's have a look. So it looks like this, so which looks very pleasing. You can even use that into even in your UI as a project, right? So this looks very fine, right? Okay, now the next step we are going to do is to work with the backend stuff. So I'm going to just take just a 5 to 10 seconds break, and I will be right back. Alright guys, so welcome back here, and now the next thing I'm going to do here is we have created all the table rows, we created the pattern. Now we have to work with the backend stuff. So let's first I have to add the jQuery here, because we are now adding up the data for our AJAX. So we need to open up you need to open up your code.jQuery.com and just copy that and just paste it right here, right? So underneath this form, let's first define the script tag for here, and now I need to write the jQuery. So we have to define the $document.ready function, and so let's define here alert in order to test that our jQuery is running, right? So I define alert 1 if I just try to refresh this and check this out, right? So now the jQuery is working. All right, so we are good to go. So let's define here inside the $document.ready function, we have to create here an on-click event. So just I need to select with the class. So let's give it the name of save_button. So when I click on this button, so let's define here the selector for the save underscore btn dot on click function. So on click function, oops, actually I had this issue many times. So dot on click function, and inside that I'm going to define here alert. So let's test this out also. So if I go back and refresh this, so as long as I click on this button and you see the alert works, right? So it's working. All right, so the next thing I need to pass here is to define an event which actually stops the form from submission. So this is a default browser behavior, especially with the form submits and like that. So we need to stop the form, so I use prevent default. And next I need to get the values and add into the database through AJAX. So I need to get its all values. So let's first look for the product ID, which is an array. So we need to define here an array inside that. So const, let's give it the variable name of product ID and just give it like this. So next we need to also define the product name. So let's give it the array of that and define the product price, which is again an empty array. Later on we are gonna push those values inside the arrays with the push function, right? So next we have our product quantity. So define that, right? So we define all the values. Now I need to define the each function. So actually in my case I need the class. So as long as you see that we have given the class on each individual product name, right? So if you see that we have the product ID, we give all the class to the product ID, just because we can't pass it through the ID because IDs are used once. So we use a class for multiple purpose. So I just need to grab its product dash ID with the help of a class. So let's grab here prod dash ID, and I'm going to use here a function, each function, which will look one like, let's suppose if we select 2 products, so this is going to check twice if we have add all the products, which are 3 in my case. So it's going to add all, it's going to loop each one by one, right? So each function does that, right? Once until the all loop complete, so then it's going to stop working, right? So inside the dot each function, I'm going to pass the callback, and right inside here I need to do if I also apply here a condition if the checkbox is checked. So in order to check this, we have to define here is, and inside that let's define colon check. That means if it's checked, then we have to push the ID, right? So let's define the product ID and push that inside and push it and get its value. As simple as that. So $this dot val, right? So that's how it will do. So what actually does is every single product have its own value. So once with all the check values, and then add it inside the array, like add it inside the empty array, which is the product ID, right? So let's do it for the next step. We can also select. So in that case, I use product dash ID as a class. We can also pass it through the name. So I'm going to show you another way. Like if I use input and define the name, and I'm going to use here something which is known as this. So basically it will matches those that begins with the name, right? So let's suppose in my case if it's the product name, so if I just give it the product name, so everything which matches up with the product name, so it's gonna get its value. So I'm gonna use the same way like I'm using each function. So we have multiple product names and we have multiple product values, we have multiple product quantities. So I'm going to use here each function for that case, right? So inside that I'm going to grab its product name value with the help of push, and push it inside the array. So just like up, we have to get its value. So $this dot val, right? As simple as that. So that's how I'm going to take its product name value. Next we have to get the product price and the quantity with the same way. So I'm going to copy it 2 more times, and let's change that to be prod underscore price, and just change that to be prod underscore quantity. All right, so and change that variable name. So in that case it's product name, in that case it's product price, and change that product underscore quantity. All right, so we are good to go. Next, after that, we have to define here the AJAX function. So $.AJAX, and inside the AJAX function, I'm going to define here multiple things. First, we have our URL, which I haven't created inside my route. So just first define that here. So I'm going to use here route names. So I'm going to tell you how you can pass the route names here. So first I'm going to create with the name of save underscore data, and now we have to pass the type of the request, which is post. And next we have to pass here the data, which you can see we have already passed. So we have to pass the product name, we have to pass the product quantity. Just for the token, I need to pass something like underscore token. So let's pass the token here first. So inside here I'm going to pass, and this is coming from the header which I've shown you, CSRF underscore token. And let's do that. So this CSRF token is coming from the, which we have passed inside the CSRF token name, right, which is the meta, right? So we passed it inside here, the Ajax. And now next thing I'm going to do here is, so let's gonna do here is to pass the product ID, and let's and this coming from this variable, right, product ID. So same stuff for the product name. So let's define product name and give it the variable name, which is product name. And let's pass here the product price, so prod underscore price. So let's pass it to the price. And same last, we have our product quantity. So let's pass the product quantity and the variable name, right? All right, so we pass all the data, and next we have the success function. So on based of the response from the controller, we pass the response here inside the success function and check if the response is successful. So this is gonna show us the message, right? So right now we haven't created any response. So let's first create the route for the save underscore data. So let's go inside the routes web.php and create here the post request. So here I'm going to pass the post request, and let's pass here the URL, which is save underscore data. And let's create the controller name, which is product controller, and the method name, which I want the same, which is save underscore data, because we are routing through this route name. So let's pass here save underscore data. So with the help of route name, you could see that I have passed my route name, which is like that. But if you're passing with the help of simple URL without the route name, you just need to pass the save underscore data, and this is going to do the same stuff, right? So I hope you just get an idea how to do it. So now let's create the controller inside the product controller. So I need to go to my app, HTTP controllers, product controller, and just underneath that, so define here a function. So public function, let's give it the name of the function, which is save underscore data. And here I'm going to pass the request. So let's pass here the request, a $request, and check this out if everything is working fine. So let's pass here $request -r, right? And check this out. So if I go back to my main page and go to the inspect and go to the networks for checking the response. So I give it the let's check to actually I don't need the quantity and price, just okay, it's fine. Right, so we are getting the values, which is a good sign. We only check to the mobile, we check to the games, that's working fine. So we have all the products, and which is fine. We are getting the product prices, we are getting the product quantity, right, which is very fine. And you see here the product name is basically showing all, because in our case it's all coming from static, right? It's all the data, which basically this product ID means which are checked. Now if I just try to click on the LCD and try to check the other response, and now you see everything is coming, right? And by default it show all the product name, right? I hope it makes sense. All right, so we are getting the request for all, which is a very good sign. Now we don't have any issues so far. So now we have to check, have apply, I just created here a variable with the name of checked underscore array equal to, let's define the request. So we check if each value is coming. So checked underscore array, we get the request of where we have the values of each single product, which is games, products, and mobile, and something like that. So we have to loop the data, right? So each product we have to repeatedly check for each product. It have its own quantity, each product have its own prices, so that's why we are using a loop here. So let's check the request for the product name as $key. So we basically pass here a loop here and give it the value. right inside here, we are passing a check here if that is also exist inside the array. So we pass here the request, the product name with the dollar loop, right? So we have to check that each individual product must have its value. And we also passing here something which will check the array, that if that product is checked, that checked underscore array will check that if that checkbox is checked, then it will add the values, otherwise it will not add the values, right? So that's why I place here inside the in underscore array. So it will check that if it's included in that array, if it exists in the array, then it's going to insert the value, right? So I hope it makes sense, right? So let's create here dollar product, and dollar product equal to new product, and that's fine. Let's create dollar product dash name equal to dollar request, and for each product name we have to use here a loop. So let's pass here dollar key. All right, so that's fine. Now we need to do the same stuff for the product quantity, and so let's change that to be price, and that's all right. Now just change that product name. So I have a name with the name of product underscore price. Sorry about that. So it's product underscore price, which you can see in your products.blade.php. So basically it comes from the product underscore price. That's the name, and that's for the product underscore quantity. So I'm going to copy that and just paste it right here. All right. So now our data is we have passed the request including all the loop of the data. That means that we are looping the data as much the products that are checked, and that's going to save it. So in order to save it, we need to simply pass here to product. So dollar product dash save. All right, so the arrow and the save, right? So now this is going to save it, but we have to define that product, which we haven't. So let's include that first. So use app slash product. All right, so we define up right here, and now everything is worked well, right? So we have the product name, we have the price and the quantity, and we save it. Now we have to pass a response. So in order to pass a response, so I'm going to go out of my loop, and once everything is saved, now let's give it the response JSON, and let's pass here the success. So I'm going to give it a success here, and let's give it the value of data inserted successfully. So you can show that message, and in your networks, which what I actually mean, which I want to show you later on. So basically this going to message show you in your that data inserted successfully. All right, so let's go up inside your jQuery success response, and let's define the pass the response here. So I'm going to paste some code from here. So let's give it here first the if condition. So I'm going to pass here the if condition right first. So if the response is successful, right? So if the response is successful, so I'm going to paste everything here. So let's pass everything here, and as well as for the set timeout function. So actually it does, as you see, that notification div on top, which I have by default, it's display none, and this is going to only show when we have the response successful. So here you see that the message fade in. So we have a jQuery function which fades in the message with the color of green. So I give it the background color of green, including the text which shows that the data inserted successfully, and the timeout function will appears, and it will only fade in the message if that message is inserted successfully, means that if the response is successful. Now in the other case, now if we have our response is not successful, so just simply pass here console.log, and let's simply show the message. And we can do one more stuff here, that if we have to pass the response, like some response which is unsuccessful for some reason, so we can also pass here the error. So let's pass the error function response, and let's pass here console.log and error. All right, so I just simply define my error right up here. Okay, so now we are done with everything. Now we have to go and start testing. So I need to migrate the table. So I'm going to open up the terminal, new terminal again, and let's migrate that. So PHP artisan migrate, and if I just simply press enter, and the tables are migrated, and which include the users table, which we don't know, which is by default, as I explained. So we have no any concern with that. So let's move into the products table. So right now it's empty, and it shows that we have the right column, which are name, price, and the quantity. All right. So let's test this out, and if I go back and refresh this, and let's add the mobile and the games. We give it the value 1 1 and give it the games of 2 and 2. If I just try to submit that, and it shows us 500 internal server error. Let's have a look and see. It says that the quantity doesn't have a default value. All right, so let's have a look and see. And if I go to my controller, so this should, yeah, it should be quantity. Actually, I forget to bring here quantity. So quantity, and saves it. And let's go back and refresh this. All right, so mobile and games, again, do the same stuff for the games. And if I just try to click submit, and you see the data inserted successfully. But here is one more thing that I need to have to focus here. You see that checked is still, it's still checked, and the values are still inside the text fields. So we need to clear them all when we submit the form. Let's first check out also that we have our data inserted successfully, which inserted successfully. All right, so now let's look for how we can clear the input fields. So in order to clear the input fields, we need to do here, the first thing we need to look for the checkboxes, right? So for the checkboxes, right under the response, when its response is successful, when it shows you the data inserted successfully. So here I'm going to show you. So input, let's add some square brackets in equal to type is equal to checkbox. So bring here checkbox, and so right after here you need to give a prop, which basically check the attribute values, which includes checked. So if it will check, and by default, to make it unchecked, we have to give here the value of false. All right, I hope it makes sense to all. Now, in order to clear the input field's name, all we are going to do is to again bring the square brackets, and let's define here name equal to, and we have a product underscore price, bring some arrays in, and let's give it the dot val. All right, and same stuff that I need for the product underscore quantity. So I'm going to copy that and paste it down here and change that product underscore quantity dot val. All right, so also bring some quotes here, right? Single quotes. So this is going to clear the input text field, which is type of number. Right now, in order to check this, let's refresh that. And now I want to add the mobile. I need to add the games and the LCDs. So let's give it 1, 1, 11, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. So now if I just try to submit that, and you see now it all cleared up, data inserted successfully. And now if I go to my database, and you see now we have our data inserted successfully. All right, so I hope you guys really love this video. This is kind of a video which you can use in your projects, you can use in your real-time projects. Might be the only difference is that you have your products which are coming dynamically from the database, or you have some different products. So the methods remain the same. So you need to keep that follow up, all the things which we have done all from the scratch, step by step. I try my level best to explain everything to you. So if you guys really love this video, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share as much you can. And thank you, and I want to see you for another interesting video which will include how we can delete the data using checkboxes. So that's it, and I want to see you for the next time.